Alright, in this example, I'm going to show you how to use a spreadsheet to perform the calculations, or a repeated calculation over and over again. That way you only have to do the calculation in the work once, instead of having to do it 10 or 15 times, the same thing 10 or 15 times in a row. Okay, in this case, we're starting with trying to find the specific heat. I know this from reading this question. And to do that, we're going to need to use our equation from yesterday. So follow along, and then you can return back to this example if you get stuck on the subsequent tabs. So a scientist is wondering what metal to use for different scenarios involving the formation of cookware. They know they will be increasing the temperature of the cookware from 23 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Celsius each use, and they want the mass to be no more than 2,000 grams. They are planning on adding an increasing amount of heat to the cookware starting at 20,000 joules and adding an extra 2,000 joules in each trial. What will be the specific heat required in each trial? Okay, so I'm going to start by finding the things that I know and putting them into this spreadsheet. So I see I've got this 23 degrees Celsius, and I see it's from degrees Celsius is a temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and put 23 right here. And remember, you can only type numbers into these cells. If you type the units, it's not going to know that it's a number. So only the number. So it's 23 right there. And I see the final temperature is 100, so I'll type 100 right here. And then I want it to find the change in temperature for me. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to tell it to do a calculation. I start by telling it equals. And then I'm going to click on the cell I want it to use. I want it to find the final temperature, and notice it named that E3, so E3, and I want to subtract the initial temperature from it. That's D3. Okay, and then I'll press enter, and it does the calculation for me. Now remember, it's important that you click on the cells when you do this and get these highlighted boxes and the E3 and D3. If you do the 123, it will only calculate that. But now when I change all of these down here also, when I drag down, it will just repeat that calculation for me. Then I've got this 2,000 grams. That's a mass, so I will put 2,000 right here. I don't know the specific heat. That's actually what I'm trying to find. So I'm going to leave that one blank. And then I've got this 20,000 joules, so I'll add that to energy. 20,000. And then I notice it tells me this piece about adding an extra 2,000 every time. So I see if I'm starting at 20,000, and the second time I'm going to do 22,000, then 24,000, 26,000. Okay, if you highlight two of these cells and then drag down, the computer will figure out the pattern you were using. So notice it just realized I was going up by 2,000 every time. 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38. And it just finished the pattern for me. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and drag these down as well and copy it, because I want the same mass and initial temperature, final temperature, and changing temperature in all the trials. Now everything is filled in except for these specific heats, and that's what I need to calculate. So I'm thinking back to class from yesterday. I know our equation is Q equals Cm delta T. And so now I need to figure out, well, what does C equal? And so if I divide both sides by M and delta T, I'm going to end up with Q divided by M delta T is equal to C. So now I know C is actually just equal to the heat divided by the mass and the temperature. So I can write that code in here and have the spreadsheet calculate it for me. So I'll do equals, Q is the energy, so I'll click on the energy cell first, divided by, and I'll put this next part in parentheses, the mass times the change in the temperature. And so remember, that's not the initial or the final, it's this last one, the change. Okay. Notice again, I'm clicking the cells instead of typing the numbers. That way, once I do the first one, closing the parentheses and press enter, it gives me my first answer. And then I can just drag this down, and it does all the rest of them for me. So instead of having to type that code 10 times, I just typed it once and then dragged down, and it would calculate all of them for me. You can come back to this video and rewatch parts of it as you go through the 5 tabs on the bottom and solving those questions if you get stuck. Go to tab Find Q and start on the question there. When you finish Find Q, go to Find M, Find Delta T, Find TI, and Find TF. You may begin.